Hey everybody. So remember last week we started talking about what it means to manage managers and what it means to do work as a director of engineering. Well, last week's episode ran a bit long, so this week we're going to jump right back into where we ended last week, and that'll be the wrap up of this first part of a series. There's just so much good things to say about being a director and all of the exciting things that you can do when you manage managers. I hope you enjoy. Let's go. There's one really crucial thing, and it has two sides, which is having really strong people working for you. And I think about it in two terms. I think about it in holding people accountable to your standards and having a bar that you can train people towards, as well as elevating people and creating opportunities for them to shine and for them to really kick ass inside of your organization. And I think as a manager, you need to be able to do both. You need to have a high bar and challenge people, and you need to build a stage for them where they can be seen doing their best work. So why is standards complicated? Well, it's because the bar is established in so many different ways. It used to be that you could just sit in on meetings with your teams and give feedback to directly to individuals about things. It used to be that you could look at code reviews and feed into you feeling that there's not enough tests or the architecture isn't up to snuff. And as you scale, you're going to be able to do more things, but you're also going to lose some of that direct connection. If you're going from having to look at, I don't know, 2 or 3 pull requests per day to maybe 15 or 20, you're going to run out of capability to do that, or you're going to have to neglect other things to be able to do that directly. And really, the only way to get around this is to teach your standards. So you want to feel good about the fact that when you are not around, the people that work for you will act in a way and will have standards in a way that you think is appropriate when they interact with their teams, when they figure out doing the types of activities that you used to do. And so you need to find ways to instill those standards in the teams, and you need to find ways to teach that culture. I have found that every interaction you have with somebody on your team is an opportunity to teach culture. And that means that you need to be reflective and introspective on how you behave, as well as on what you give leeway for, what you give positive feedback for, what you give negative feedback for in those interactions, because it's through those interactions that you set what the standard is. I've also found that writing things down and making your expectations clear in writing, roles and responsibilities, races, expectation documents, behavioral, like this is the way you should be do it, like codifying your culture. All of those things are also important. But you can only do those things if you're already role modeling and if you're already setting the standard that you want the organization to follow. And if you're unable to role model the behavior that you want to see from people in your team, then you rightfully will have a really hard time having a high bar in your organization, and I'm pretty sure you're going to fail. So, having high standards by role modeling them is such a key piece of being successful in this type of an indirect role. So if there's a duality here, the duality is then to create a stage for your people to be successful on. And I think everybody's been in situations where somebody senior is seen to claim credit for something that everybody knows that they didn't know. It was people on their teams that did it. I've never really understood that type of a behavior because it's so distasteful, and it doesn't really it betrays not understanding how these things kind of work, which is the best way that you can elevate your own standing and the best way that you can look good for yourself, is that something that you're looking for, is by having the people on your team shine. People will be much more impressed with you if you run an excellent team, and the team is creating all of this amazing output, rather than if you had all of that, if you take credit for all of that output yourself, right? So creating a stage for your people is super important. This is both the people that work directly for you, but also the people that work for them. You have to think about this both in the types of projects you place people to, the types of growth plans that the people on your team have, as well as the larger rituals that you can now run. So things like sprint demos or hack days or other activities. So it's everything from how often does your boss meet with people on your team? Where do you deploy your managers most effectively? And we've talked a lot about this in delegation, but it's doubly important here so that they are set up to grow in a good way. And how do you create enough safety for your team in that they can be successful and playing on that stage while getting your shit done and challenging them to grow. Both in holding people to high standards and in creating a stage, there's going to be a nuance and there's going to be a spectrum of approaches you can take to this, depending on the confidence and seniority and all of these things of the person working for you. Somebody junior that is just coming up is probably not going to benefit from you applying just a shit ton of pressure on them to get shit done. You're probably going to have to be more leaned in, and you're going to have to be more connected to what they're doing and be much more of a teacher. While somebody that is more senior and has more of a grasp on what they need to do might benefit much more from you really challenging them to do their best work and really pushing them. So all of the things that we've talked about today really connect to one of the themes of this entire series and this entire channel, which is about being a good servant leader. And you know what that means, which is how can we as leaders create the conditions within the people that work for you can do their best work, and how can you empower them, give them the context and information so that they can go out and crush it every day. And I think the role modeling of being a servant leader and scaling that becomes even more and ever more important when you're more senior, because the values that you espouse are going to be the values that your organization espouses. And sometimes you run across extremely vivid just depictions of this. I'll give you like a super simple example. This summer during Corona, like a lot of people here in the US weren't taking vacations because there's no way really to travel. And I was seeing that my team was getting like pretty burned out from just having worked and worked and worked. And we've gone through some really tough and heavy things this spring. And so I kept like pushing people to take vacation and asking them to take some time off. And it wasn't really happening. And I realized it's because I'm not taking time off myself. So what I did was I took 3 weeks off, and immediately like 7 out of 10 people on my team took vacation. And then the folks on their team started taking vacation. And so you got this like cascade happening where people who were previously afraid to take vacation now saw that the boss was doing it, and then it was okay to do it. And it was a super visceral reminder of the power that you have running large organizations to just do simple things that can meaningfully affect the quality of life for folks on your team. Ultimately, sort of for how your life is going to change and the types of things that you're going to change, like we've covered a couple of those today, they're all related to scaling your impact, and they're all related to allowing the folks that work for you to do their best work and to hold them to high standards and to understand their output and to help them increase that. We're going to talk more about some of the practicalities of that. We're going to talk more about like how do you do a really good one-on-one, some of the mistakes that you can make in going down this route. And I'm sure there's tons of concepts that we could be covering in managing managers. So I really need you to give me feedback on what do you want to hear me talk about and what do you want to know more about. And I'd love to get into more of that. And it should be noted that this entire series that we're down now comes from the feedback of a couple of watchers who've said, hey, talk more about this. And I'm always super happy to oblige. So drop a comment below, let me know what you think, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one.